Hey, what's up, guys? This is Kevin Kerner with Tech Marketing Rewired. Ever hit that moment where your company's growing, but the story still seems to be stuck in your executives' team's heads, or even worse, your founder? In this latest episode, I sat down with Kristen Brooks, who's the Senior Director of Product Marketing at Auctane, and someone I've known for a long time, since our Cisco days, to talk about how product marketing actually scales. We got into founder-led storytelling, pricing and packaging, PLG versus sales-led motions, and how to message AI features without sounding like everyone else. This is a great one from a real product marketing professional and something other founders like me really need to hear. Let's get into it. This is Tech Marketing Rewired. Welcome back to the Tech Marketing Rewired podcast. Today I'm talking to Kristen Brooks, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Auctane. I've known Kristen for a long time, and I know in her career she has worked on a bunch of really interesting product and marketing projects. She has background in pricing and packaging frameworks, go-to-marketing strategies. She's worked with all the major research firms like Gartner, Forrester, and IDC, and has worked on even some AI product positioning throughout her career. She's held positions, senior product and marketing positions at Brightspot, Bazaarvoice, and Cisco. And at Cisco, it's where we met each other.
Yes.
So most importantly, this is the first podcast that I'm talking to a senior product marketing professional. So I'm so excited about it, especially in light of all the craziness with products and AI, and this will be a really good conversation. So Kristen, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. There's so much changing really quickly. So it's a really fun time to work in technology, be a product marketer. I feel like the role kind of changes every day. So excited to be here.
No doubt about it. It's crazy. And that's what Rewired's all about. And we're like all trying to rewire our brains right now. It's really nuts.
Definitely.
Before we get into it, I'd love you to talk a little bit more about your responsibilities at Auctane, and maybe also, for those that don't know what Auctane does, a little bit more about the company.
Awesome. Yeah. Auctane is really, I think of them as a portfolio company of several brands and primarily geared and focused around shipping, logistics, helping people mail the things that they want to mail to anyone in the world, whether you're an individual like a lawyer who's sending a lot of mail, letters, or you're a very large enterprise retailer brand who's shipping millions of packages every day. So we help those companies grow and scale and provide shipping and logistics no matter how they want to use them. So product marketing at Auctane, we primarily focus on go-to-market, and I think it's like two flavors that are really interesting. One is very product-led growth, SMB, bringing SMB to mid-market up to enterprise. Like, how do we scale that, and where does website lead go-to-market? And then there's also an enterprise component, which looks very different, which is very much a sales-led growth motion. So I think it's been a really fascinating place to come in and just kind of see the differences. My background's in pure enterprise all the way from the beginning. So it's been pretty fascinating to see even the changes in the product marketing discipline around messaging, how it's deployed, the channels that are different between, SMB or individuals versus enterprise, the differences between I'm a person, I'm checking out with my credit card online versus, I'm a part of a giant buying committee that requires executive level, approval. So I've loved it for that reason. I'm learning a ton, and so far so good, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah, that diversity of like the two differences in how your go to market is really super interesting. About Auctane is when I found out you'd moved to Auctane, it's interesting. I get you get alerts from the post office when they send you something or something, and it has a lot of retailers have Auctane on the. It's coming from Auctane, so you guys are kind of a hidden backbone, I guess, of supply chain. Almost,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. They say when you join Auctane, you become a shipping label nerd. And I find that's definitely the case. Like, where's this coming from? But it's also really interesting because you can also see where brands or products you love might be using someone else. So that's also very interesting.
Yeah, just what you wanted to be was a shipping label nerd.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the one thing I wanted to jump in first, because I know you've done a lot of, and this may be near and dear to my heart because I am a founder and a CEO. I know you've worked on some founder-led storytelling and trying to take a founder. This is probably like real personal for me because I am a founder and we're trying to scale the go-to-market motion. I wonder what you think, like what you've seen from founders, why it's just such a hard transition for companies to make from going from a founder that has a vision to something that's more scalable and repeatable.
Yeah. I also love this question because I think it is very personal. There's a very real emotional aspect that you're working with as someone who's trying to scale something. And I think until you see it firsthand, it's hard to appreciate what that transition needs to look like. I think the first thing that one of the big aha moments for me when I was in this situation working with a co-founder trying to scale the message is the founder story is not one that everyone has the right to tell. And it's reserved for the founder. And so I think breaking that mental model that, hey, all my salespeople need to tell the story that I tell, it's required in order to remain authentic, to level up the story into a way that's really about the value of whether it's a service, whether it's a product to the ultimate end customer, because you and the emotions and the person who created it from scratch, that's not something that anyone else can tell in a genuine way. So I think that that's the first thing that kind of has to disconnect in order for
Completely.
you to really hone in on, all right, agnostic of me and why I found it and all the backstory, which is so powerful and potent. It's like, how do you take that and place it in the right spot? So I think of things like executive sponsorship, right? And like deploying that founder story in the right place along the customer journey, but being very thoughtful about it, but really empowering the sales folks to tell a more product service value oriented story that's independent of the founder, which I think is a challenge.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that was really fascinating for me was when I was learning about the product and the service, everything I knew or was being told was by way of a customer story, right? And that was coming from the founder, right? Because he's not only built it, but he's prospected. He's built the relationships. He's got the Rolodex, right? Like he has those personal connections. He's telling his founder-led story. And it was by way of here's what the customer wanted and here's what we delivered. And so it was really challenging for us to like find the common thread. Like what were the things that were truly valuable across all of these examples? And that becomes the value of the solution or the service itself. Like, was it, hey, we can scale faster, better than anyone else, or we're the most flexible solution, or we empower collaboration. That it took us a while to like unwind that from this is a customer Adidas and they were looking for X and this is what we did with them and this is how it went, the whole story. So that was another like key moment for us, is recognizing that all of these really important, valuable attributes were kind of hidden within, 10 to 50 customer stories that we had to kind of back into. And then I think like one other component here was the sales process itself. And what I've found, again, when you're in that stage of founder led and you've probably got your like pod of people who have maybe been with you since the beginning, everyone's kind of got their own little flavor, kind of trying to standardize what are the key milestones within a sales process, right? That probably looks pretty different across each of the people that you're currently using to sell. And I learned this from Gartner, actually. They did a big study around scaling sales. And what they found is scaling sales fails over and over and over again because the traditional MO is, hey, I'm going to hire a really senior salesperson and they're just going to know what to do. But they don't, because salespeople are not process people. And so they fail over and over and over again, right? Because they're relationship people, right? Like, yeah, they know how to work with a relationship, but what does sales look like at that particular company? What are those key milestones? So that was another aspect that just became pivotal to marketing, to sales, especially in an enterprise motion. It's like, what are those key things? It doesn't have to be perfect, but what we know is consistent across everybody's sales motion, and trying to standardize that so that the salesperson doesn't have to come up with that on their own.
Lee, this is hitting me so hard as a founder. You're just like digging into my soul and taking out all the stuff that I feel. It's so true, especially the sales comment. It's like, why can't we just hire someone that just can go, tell my story out to the world? I think the other thing I'm thinking is it's so important now because there's so many companies get created so fast. And they get created like, you can have a company with, 20 employees now that becomes huge. And so that founder who started that, or a couple founders, scaling is just, it could start to happen very quickly. And like what it takes to build a company now is still real hard depending on the category. But let's say a tech company, it just, everything is accelerated so fast. So I think there'll be a lot more founders of companies that don't stay small long. They just get a lot. This discussion is important because they get so big. What I was thinking through that, what you just went through, there's got to be some point in time when you're like, okay, this founder needs to now begin to scale things. What is the typical signal that says, okay, we got to get out of the founder growth thing and we got to just go into a more repeatable system?
Yeah, I think it's probably multi-threaded, right? Like either A, we're not growing, right? And you could probably diagnose that too. If founder is doing all the prospecting, Rolodexing, like trying to run the whole end to end, which I think you see often, right? And then you're only one person or a handful of people if it's co-founders, right? So there's a limit to growth that might suggest like, all right, we've got to pivot. And I think that's maybe probably the first thing that you might see. I think the other maybe potential indicator which would be a great thing, is increased demand where you can't actually service them or convert them because you're lost in, again, seller trying to tell founder story, which they have no right to tell, which they cannot nail, which they cannot deliver with conviction, like a co-founder actually could. So when you start to see this, like maybe you were winning, great closing deals in the beginning, and now you're seeing like conversion tank, like to me, it goes back to those like first stages. So maybe, you're still working your Rolodex and maybe you've stood up marketing to try and draw people in the funnel, but then something's not working. We go from winning to not winning. And I think that's a clear sign of like whatever message we're trying to deliver, that's likely the founder message, lacking conviction, lacking clarity on what are the true differentiation, what is the true value, because we're stuck in I built this because of XYZ, which is compelling, but you've got that disconnect.
Do you think I'm curious of your opinion, like, do you think that most founders, the reflex when they get to that point is to hire a salesperson, or do you think they need to hire a product person, like product marketing person? What advice would you give them? What do you see, and like what advice would you give a founder? Do you need to go with a product person, or do you go with sales, or do you like what's the step there?
Yeah, from what I see, it's probably a combination of sales and like a demand person or a growth person. So the reason I say that is because I and this is just what I see. Like I typically see a product marketer come in later because generating that scaled demand, getting people through the door, getting awareness, getting that piece out there is pivotal. And you could, again, if you can, as a founder, maybe break some of that cycle of founder story and really hone in on these are the things we do really well. Right. And that becomes the messaging. And I think also at the same time, like hopefully marketers are good at baseline copy, baseline messaging. They know how to test. They know how to optimize for conversion. So I think there is more of a like data-led optimization where you could hire a product marketer later to determine, all right, we've cracked the nut on maybe this segment of the market. we want to expand that, or even if it's on the messaging front, right? Like outsourcing it to an agency of like, okay, we know and I think it depends maybe on the demand person and their skill set and like how things are performing. But that's typically what I see. And then I think the salesperson, yeah, for scalability reasons, if you're going to draw on a lot of attention, leads, someone's got to service those, right?
Yeah.
So those two together is a nice
Great
pair.
advice. Great advice. Because sometimes as a founder, you really don't know what is the next step. You probably feel the reflex to go with sales. I got to hire a salesperson. But the growth role is really important, and something we're thinking about right now is like you got to put some sort of repeatable growth system in place before you get to the point where messaging, and frankly, I think as a founder, you probably have some decent messaging ability to give to a growth person to pull out of you. But then it gets to the
Definitely.
point where, okay, now we have to implement some real product marketing system. So now you're in this mode where, okay, a product marketer needs to be brought in. I'm really curious because you've done this so much. What's the first system you typically implement, or the first few systems you typically implement as a product marketer when you're entering this type of environment?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd call this a system or not, but I think of it like a framework. I do the like kind of state of product marketing where I've got my set list of things that I know need to be true. And I take inventory of like, how well are they based on what in my mind would be best in class for that particular business. And I just do a full audit. Whether we're talking about how good is the messaging, how good is the pitch, how good is the sales enablement, listen to calls, right? Sit with sales. Like, how well are they driving message? What is even like the sales acumen around like who we need to go and serve? The pricing, right? Does everyone know the pricing? I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah, no, don't.
Right. And then like, are there, and I think especially in founder, like what's tribal knowledge and what's actually documented where someone can come in and pick it up and like take it and run with it. And that becomes a super easy thing for a new person to look at with fresh eyes, right? Of like, am I having to have 50 conversations with Kevin to understand this business? That's going to tell me probably most things are tribal knowledge. But I think getting to that baseline of like, what's your starting point? And then depending on the business and what they need and where they are in terms of their life cycle and what they need, that should determine focus. Sometimes
Mm.
there's really low hanging fruit. Like at one of the prior companies I worked with, like there was inconsistency in pricing. And we found out during an RKO where we were doing a little fun Jeopardy game. And we
No
had
one
two
knew
different
pricing.
answers for pricing. And that was to me like, okay, like that's baseline. Like, let's go get that fixed. It was a relatively easy fix for us to go do. So I think it's like looking at it holistically, aligned with, what does the business ultimately need to go do and prioritizing that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's really good. People tend to over-engineer it too. Like you can come in and say, "Here's all the systems we need to put in place," without doing that audit up front. You still have to build some structure, but also be agile in the way you do this stuff because every company you might enter is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you look for the early wins in the work that you do on the product side?
Yeah, I think it depends on again the things that you want to execute
Yeah.
against. So like in the pricing and packaging example, like to me it was scaling and documenting a price book and almost going back to the sales team and validating that everyone could say what they knew the price of the packages were, right? Like
Yeah.
that was a win to me. If we're
Yeah.
talking messaging, right, I would start to listen to gong calls. I would start to see like adoption.
Mm.
And then what I love to, I think a really important component to product marketing in general, and I don't know if this is widely used, I don't think it is, but really looking at funnel performance to tell you what to do as a product marketer. So even if there are things like a key component to whether you're just beginning as a product marketer and coming into a new company, or even throughout the lifetime that you're serving as a product marketer, to me, 60 to 70% of the work that we do should be focused and informed by funnel performance. So I know I'm shifting a little away from like quick wins, but I think this is really important, and where I see product marketing either having a clear impact or maybe not being able to measure that. So for example, if we would look at marketing qualified lead, sales accepted lead, sales qualified lead, sales qualified opportunity, and then opportunity funnel throughout. If you can rationalize what's happening across each of those stages, and define each of those stages. Again, it can be a scrappy like sales process where it's like, this is just generally what we know. Then you can start to diagnose what activity based on the conversion between each stage is not working. And then it just becomes such a clear picture of like, all right, I see marketing qualified to sales accepted is really low. Let's say it's 10%. Then I know I can hone in on, we're not identifying the right ICP. What we're delivering is not the people who sales thinks is worth working. So that becomes a very focused conversation where you don't even have to talk about the pitch deck, the messaging, like really any of that the salesperson is doing, because you know your problem's right up here. So either we don't know who we're talking to, the highest level messaging isn't resonating, or it's resonating to the wrong person. Where's the difference between what marketing thinks is qualified and sales thinks is qualified, right? Like there's some very focused conversation you could have there. So again, I think that this is just such a smarter way to work when you look at full funnel and you can break down those conversion rates and have some understanding of what's happening. And then it just takes the guesswork out of like, where do you focus?
Yeah, it's awesome. It also connects it to revenue or the funnel,
Absolutely.
right? And so that's the best place to go.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to make it work, but you're also trying to get the ELT or executive team to really understand the effect of product marketing. It's like connecting it directly to the funnel is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I want to shift gears a little bit. At the outset, you mentioned the thought that this environment you're in now, where it's product-led growth, but also very sales-led growth. And that, I don't know if I've come across, there are a few companies I think that have both those models, but you've got both of them that you have to sort of wrestle. What, just talk a bit about that. Like, what's the difference in your mind of being a product marketer in a PLG environment versus a sales-led environment?
Yeah. So I think some of my early observations is in a PLG motion, right? It's typically you're marketing to an individual, right? Who is the decision maker, the signatory, if you want to think of that in enterprise words, right? Like they're coming to a site, they're transacting, right? So the idea of the web experience becomes much more significant because that's where they are going through their entire customer journey, really. Like consideration, evaluation, all of those things are happening in the .com experience mostly. And I think that's been just such a significant change. There's a lot more quick A/B testing, conversion rate optimization activities, like replacing words, calls to action, very quick motions that is like trying to fine tune the dial of transacting on the site. So that's like, I think that's just fascinating. There's also from a channel mix strategy, more TV, more promotions, discounts, couponing, like that type of motion. Also where like pricing changes can really move up or down. There's also a big like community aspect, right? Where these individuals are talking on Reddit and they're talking in these forums and like just the social media. It becomes a much more community-based, I think, conversation than what you see in enterprise. So that's just been fascinating from a even channel and like marketer, despite product marketer, where I've seen some differences in the experience. And I think there's also a component there where you've really got to think about web as a proxy for upsell, cross-sell. Right. And it becomes about more the automation, Pendo, notifications, onboarding, like translating person and hand holding to a digital experience, which is wild to see. Where on the enterprise side, right, like I think, yes, you have important web moments. People need to generally feel like you have something for me, you service people like me, you have case studies that help me decide that I'm going to shortlist you, right? Like where the analyst relations become very important of, they have a reputation. They feel like enterprise. They feel big enough for me. So I think you've got a little more emotions happening, less quick decision making, more like, yes, I'm going to trade my time to go explore this further. So I think messaging is important and significant. And there is a very real, especially B2B, there's so much saturation in messaging, right? And so I think you do have to be super clear on what do you do for who, and make sure you're really tied into that component in the buying committee, and making sure you have a place for people to feel welcome and that that you have something for them. And the channel mix is different, right? You're working with a group of people. There's the dynamics of how that group interacts and plays with each other and what they really care about. And I think that's what I find like enterprise sales sometimes struggling with is you want to scale this is the story for everybody. But when you've got like a CTO, a CIO, a CMO, procurement in the room, like you really have to take that, yes, highest level messaging, but then how do you speak to each of those individuals within a room, right? When they're all present, and make it relevant. So I'd say like messaging more becomes like the back half, right? And where the sales enablement and empowering a person to tell that story versus the web. Wow, what a difference.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think there's more. I don't know if you feel this, but I think there's more. Maybe it's because all these small AI-based companies are launching very quickly and getting big. I think there's more trend towards PLG than there ever has been right now. Just there's a ton of it. And there's some companies that do it really well, even founder-led sort of PLG motions where the founder is the voice and the web is the experience. And it just makes you want to buy because you know the founder and you see him, and it's really interesting time that I haven't seen before. It builds trust. When you can talk about when the founders out there talking about the product. Super interesting. And that's probably just driven by all the AI companies. So one last thing, because I know you've done this at scale, the AI messaging thing. So everyone's trying to jam AI into their messaging right now. Everything's AI, which is, it's true, like everything is AI. But how do you approach what are your thoughts on effectively messaging an AI feature or product in a time when it's just,
Yeah, there's a couple of, I think, personal philosophies or boundaries or ways of thinking that I've adopted. The first being, it can't be AI for AI's sake. Like I learned about a term called AI washing. You probably know it, where it's like people say that they can do it and it's by AI, but then these companies get sued. And immediately I had to that's not going to be me. I can't be that.
Bunch of people on keyboards in the background doing the work.
Yeah. So I love to think of it as like what is powered by AI versus leading with AI. So, and then what's the ultimate benefit? It's typically what I've seen is like a productivity story, a cost saving story, an efficiency story. And so that's what I've led with is like, but why AI? Trying to extrapolate that and really hit on some of these macros that we see, like tightening of wallets. Tariffs is a big one in our world, right? With shipping of like, we will help you. We will use, this is an example. I'm not saying that this is true, but AI powered, customs navigation or something like that, right? Where it's like, here's a very real practical thing that we know is going to be a headache for you, that we can scale through AI. And I think for me, the other component of an AI story is the protection and privacy. Like, I feel like you've got to talk about both. Is like, here's all the great things that we're going to do for you, saving money, like talking to the balance sheet, right? Total cost of ownership. Maybe it's not like a direct one-to-one, this feature is going to save you X, but when you look at the entirety of the solution service, how AI helps accelerate that in XYZ way. And also, here's how we're protecting you, making it safe, especially when you talk about scaled AI solutions. That scares a lot of people, right? Of like, oh my God, we're going to adopt this thing and it's going to get very out of control, even though the tactics of that and the actual implementation is probably just the unknown, right? Like, what if? And so if we can help people sleep at night by saying, we've thought this through so you don't have to, I think that's probably, to me, where the story becomes really powerful is we can get you productivity, and also we're thinking about the long term and how you might track and measure and make sure you're safe.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because I think as salespeople on the sales side, you just want to say AI, but you don't really think about the necessarily, a good product person does this, but you don't necessarily think about the safety thing top of mind that a customer might be thinking about. Like, oh, is this stuff safe? So it's really sage advice. And doesn't it, it just always goes back to messaging, like effectively messaging the benefits back to the customer versus just saying, hey, we have AI, this is cool AI that does something.
Yeah.
So it's really good advice. Okay. So this is, and I could talk to you forever. I feel like this is a little selfish for me because I'm learning so much that I can apply. I'm like, oh man, I'll have to get you offline on this stuff. But I do this thing that I warned you about. This is AI Roulette. So I put a question inside of Perplexity, and I'm going to push send here, and then I'm going to see what it gives us. Okay, here we go. And it's basically, I just put in your profile, said, give me a question that we wouldn't expect.
Okay.
And try not to, make it be respectful of us at things. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, product marketers are often expected to be the ultimate translators, bridging product sales and customer needs. What's one harsh truth about this role you wish more founders or execs understood before they launch a product? And how has learning that lesson shaped the way you approach your work? One harsh truth about this role you wish founders or execs understood before they launched the product.
I think it is, just because you're excited about what you built does not mean your customer is going to be excited about what you built.
But it's so great. Everyone wants this. How could they not want it?
Exactly. And yeah, I think that there's just such an important component. Like, one thing we didn't talk about, and I just want to like do a little plug for, is like the importance of getting as close as possible to the customer, right? And not only from a customer input perspective, but also the conversation you need to have with the customer, right? Yeah. As a seller, I took a 2-year stint as a client success leader, and it's the best thing that I've done for my career as a marketer, because it made me a better marketer. I know what it is to like sit in the hot seat, right? With big clients where they've got objections, they don't believe you, like you're really having to show up in a different way. And so I think it is like, I mostly have worked with more executives, a few founders. Founders are better at getting with the customer, right? And like establishing those relationships. But I think as you scale and as you grow like that, it just becomes disconnected. So whether you're a product person, an executive, like sitting with the customer and like driving that diligence and doing some testing and validating and being unafraid to bring the customer along in your half-baked journey, I think is great. Like, customers want to feel like they have influence over your roadmap and the future of building something significant together. And I think we feel this obligation to say like, here it is, it's perfect in every way. Do you love it?
Yeah.
But people want to be a part of something. And I think that's true whether you're in founder mode or skilled. So things like client advisory boards at any level, really, now that I'm saying it, becomes super cool.
Yeah, great answer. Oh my gosh, that's really, really good. And I'll say it again, like Perplexity does a much better job with questions than I do. I should just let AI
I thought
run
this was great. I had a lot of fun.
Krista, it's been great catching up with you again. I'm just so amazed. Like, we knew each other, we worked together, I don't know, probably 15 years ago or so. Yeah. It's just incredible, the experience you bring, and how much you've shown how much product marketing, being a great marketer, but being a great product marketing executive, it's an amazing skill set. It really is a specific skill set that you have. So it's just delightful for me to see
Yeah,
the
it's
chops that you
fun.
have. It's really
I,
awesome.
I know.
I'll ask you if people want to contact you to get more, just to get in touch with you, ask questions about this stuff. What's the best way for them to reach you?
I think LinkedIn is great. We can
Okay.
always start there. Kristen Brooks. I've got a like rainbow colored background in my photo. Work at Auctane. So I think that's perfect.
Well, Kristen, it's so great catching up with you, and I will. I need to talk to you on the side about our own
I
founder-led
love it. Let's do
stuff.
it.
Okay, cool. So good to
Awesome.
see you.
You too. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
Kevin. Bye.